Europe's map 2,000 years ago. Shocking tribal shifts. Europe's map 2,000 years ago? Totally different from today. English ancestors? Hung out near modern Denmark. Serb ancestors? Lived by the Vistula River. Spanish ancestors? Chillin' in Sweden. Tribes moved around a lot. No permanent homes. This went on until the 5th, 6th centuries. But when most groups finally settled, creating the first European states. That whole chaotic period, it's called It all ties back to the huge Roman Empire ruling half of Europe. The other parts? Romans called Romans were super dismissive. Even barbarian came from Romans mocking their speech. But hey, Romans thought barbarians were tough fighters and hired them. Germanic tribes especially caught their eye for being so warlike. First encounter? When the Cimbri barged into Roman territory. These guys needed land, so they marched over the Alps to Italy. They raided the Gauls on the way, who then ran to Rome for help. This invasion nearly flipped Europe's power balance. For a bit, a Germanic kingdom popped up by the Mediterranean. Rome, for the first time in ages, faced a real threat, actively pushing into Italy. Only 12 years later did Rome win, but they definitely saw the ancient Germans' guts. Later, Julius Caesar added Germanic cavalry to his ranks. Emperor Tiberius even created a Germanic guard for his good weather helped ancient Germans thrive. Crops boomed, and so did the population. Eventually, with land getting scarce, the ancient Germans decided to move. In the 70s AD, Goths left Gotland for taking over areas where Slavic peoples lived. By 150 AD, they were warring with the Sarmatians and won. Here, the Goths built their kingdom, Oyam. Sarmatians fled to the Roman Empire to escape the Goths, bringing other Germanic tribes. The biggest? The Marcomanni. Romans weren't thrilled with the new folks, sparking wars that lasted 14 years on and off. Emperor Marcus Aurelius even beat them back, but his son Commodus, tired of fighting, agreed to let the barbarians settle in Roman lands. That's how the first ancient Germans ended up in the Roman Empire. The Goths often raided Roman territory. In 251, during one raid, they destroyed a Roman army at Abritus, killing Emperor Decius. Their buddies the Heruli sacked Greece and burned Athens. In 271, Rome, short on troops for Dacia, just handed it over to the Goths. But the peak was under Ermanaric. He conquered the Carpi, Heruli, Alans, and Slavs, and made the Goths rich through trade with Rome. A mercenary Gothic guard unit even appeared in Constantinople, protecting the emperor's palace. But a year after Ermanaric died, the Huns showed up. They quickly got the Slavs and Alans on their side, beat the Goths, and brutally killed their king, Vithamyris. The terrified Goths fled to but some stayed under Hun rule and were moved to the Danube. Another group of Goths escaped to Crimea, converted to Christianity, and lived with the local Greeks. Emperor Valens let the Goths settle in the Roman Empire, hoping they'd help fight Persia. But so many showed up, there wasn't enough room. Conflicts with locals erupted immediately. A famine hit the Goths, and the promised pay for military service never arrived. Turns out corrupt officials had pocketed it. Then, when Roman soldiers roughed up some Goths in the market, rebellion sparked. Instead of helping Valens, took over Mysia. The emperor had to march back to Europe. He met the Goths in 378 near Adrianople. His army was exhausted, and all the Germanic mercenaries had switched sides just before the battle. Rome suffered a devastating loss, and Emperor Valens. For 4 years, Goths plundered the Balkans, and Romans couldn't stop them. Only Emperor Theodosius managed it, letting the Goths live in the Roman Empire in exchange for military service. The Goths were loyal soldiers to Theodosius, especially in crushing rebellions. They even carried out a massacre in Thessalonica with his approval when citizens protested imperial officials. When Eugenius declared himself Emperor of Rome, the Goths backed Theodosius. At this point, Alaric, who would become the Visigoth king, was ready to lead. His Gothic army was key to defeating the usurper Eugenius at the Battle of Theodosius promised payment, and Alaric was promised a high command, but neither promise was kept. When the emperor died, the Goths split. Some went to the Huns by the Danube, and the others, led by Alaric, invaded and plundered Greece. The Roman commander Stilicho started defending the empire against the Goths. He kicked Alaric out of Greece and beat him twice on his march to Italy. He crushed revolts in Africa and fought other Germanic tribes. From Rome to Ravenna, he later attacked lands where Goths had settled. But Romans couldn't accept Stilicho having a barbarian father. Senators plotted against, accused him of inviting barbarians, as if he planned the attacks himself. Emperor Honorius, pressured by the senators, finally ordered Stilicho killed. In 406, while Stilicho fought Alaric in Illyria, the Huns kicked the Vandals out. The Vandals teamed up with the Alans and Suebi and started raiding Gaul. No Roman troops came to defend Gaul. So the Roman commander in Britain, Flavius Constantius, left the island with his army to fight the barbarians on the mainland. Rome kept Gaul, but lost Britain forever. The Vandals, Alans, and Suebi fled to Spain in exchange for Roman army service. And in Gaul, Romans invited the Franks to guard their border. In 411, the Burgundians, fleeing the Huns, all establishing their own kingdom. When Alaric heard his rival Stilicho was dead, he gathered his troops, invaded Italy, beat the Romans, and besieged Rome. Long negotiations, almost a year, failed, so the Goths attacked the city. After many tries, Romans opened the gates themselves, hoping for mercy. But the Goths took and looted the city. Rome hadn't seen such destruction in 800 years. But this was the end of Alaric's long campaign. He died of malaria soon after capturing the city. After he died, the Goths lost their unity again. Some went to Pannonia, controlled by another group spent 8 years retaking southern Gaul from the Romans. This led to the kingdom of Toulouse, splitting the Goths into Visigoths and Ostrogoths. The Visigoths soon started conquering the Iberian Peninsula. The Vandals couldn't stop the larger Gothic forces. The Vandals built a fleet, sailed to Africa, captured Carthage, and founded their kingdom. Around this time, temperatures dropped significantly, causing crop failures and Spain. Vandals sailed to Africa, took Carthage, and built their own kingdom. Big climate drop, failing crops. Starvation hit ancient Germans hard. The Jutes and Angles fled, swimming for England. They took land from the local Britons. Some Britons escaped to a peninsula named after. Others fought back. Lacking strength, they allied with the Saxons. Big mistake. Once in Britain, the Saxons attacked the Britons, pushing them to the edge. So Saxons, Angles, and Jutes conquered land, setting the stage for England. The Huns were Europe's top dogs, thanks to their massive cavalry. They settled in Pannonia, then raided the Balkans. Attila took charge, conquered tribes, and built a huge... He hit the Balkans hard, even forcing Emperor Theodosius II to pay him off. But Attila wanted more war. He found his excuse with Emperor Valentinian III. Attila demanded Valentinian's sister in marriage, and half the empire as... The emperor said no, so the Huns invaded Gaul. Roman general Flavius Aetius rallied Romans and barbarians to... They met in 451 on the Catalonian plains. It was a brutal 4-day battle. Pretty much every barbarian tribe fought. Some tribes even fought each other. Ostrogoths for the Huns, Visigoths for the Romans. So many died, their bodies piled up like hills. The Visigoth king, Theodoric, Alaric's son, was killed. The Goths retreated. The Huns left that same night. The next year, the Huns attacked the Roman Empire again, even besieging Rome. Pope Leo I convinced Attila to spare the city with a massive ransom. Still, the Huns plundered. Approaching Aquileia, locals fled to islands, founding Venice. Back on the Danube, Attila married a Gothic girl, Ildiko, for support. Even then, no one knew how he died. Poison? Wine? Or Ildiko herself, avenging her family? After Attila died, his sons, the Huns, lost their power and faded from history. In 455, Emperor Valentinian his wife asked the Vandals for revenge. By the time the Vandals arrived, the assassin was... So the Vandals just looted Rome for 14 days. Rome was so weak, power went to the Visigoth warlord Ricimer. The Ostrogoths, the largest Hun tribe, quickly beat the Huns and formed their own kingdom. They conquered neighbors, and the Roman emperor let them... They had good relations with Romans, even serving on the border. When the Alemanni invaded Italy, the Ostrogoths fought for... The new emperor then told Odoacer to defeat another claimant. But Odoacer knew who really ran things. After the emperor's father died, Odoacer forced the boy to abdicate, sent the imperial regalia to Constantinople, and declared himself king of Italy. The Roman Empire was officially Ostrogoth king Theodoric the Great marched on Italy, not respecting Odoacer's low birth. He beat Odoacer, killed him in a meeting, and took the throne. In the late 5th century, Scots left Ireland for the UK, giving Scotland its name. In 507, Franks beat the Visigoths, gaining South Gaul. Visigoths moved their capital to Toledo. The Visigoth kingdom birthed Spaniards, the Frankish kingdom, the French. In 533, Byzantines invaded Africa, beating the Vandals. To avenge Rome's plunder, Byzantines killed locals. Some fled to the desert. Then, Byzantines warred with Ostrogoths, unable to. So they hired the Lombards to defeat the Ostrogoths. The Lombards succeeded and stayed, founding their own kingdom. Around the same time, Slavs, called Sclavini by Byzantines, came from the Danube, invading Byzantium. A powerful Antис union of Slavic tribes emerged. In 541, a plague hit Byzantium, devastating the Balkans. Some areas were wiped out. Slavs, fleeing Avar attacks, settled the empty land. They spread through the Balkans and even part of the Peloponnese. In 558, Turkic Bulgars threatened Byzantium, reaching Constantinople. In 610, Byzantine Emperor Heraclius hired Croats from the Carpathians. They loved Dalmatia, stayed, and founded the. In 665, Bulgars, fleeing Khazars, settled on the Danube, forming their Khanate and blending with Slavs. Meanwhile, Slavs moved west. Many small Slavic states formed, with Great Moravia eventually gaining power. The last major group to arrive were the Magyars. They settled the Black Sea steppes, raiding neighbors. In 895, Moravian Prince Svatopluk I hired Magyars. Instead, the Magyars took Great Moravia during settlement and made it their state, Hungary. Europe's borders would shift, but not drastically. This is how the map of Europe was formed, with barbarian kingdoms becoming the foundation of our modern nations. They couldn't beat the Ostrogoths, so they asked the Lombards to help. Lombards wiped out the Ostrogoths as asked. Then they stayed and made their own kingdom in Italy. Around the same time, Slavs, Byzantines called Sclavini, invaded Byzantium from the Danube. Soon, a powerful Antис union of Slavic tribes kept attacking Byzantine lands. 541 A.D., a plague hit Byzantium hard, devastating the Balkans. Some areas were wiped out. Slavs, fleeing Avar attacks, moved into empty lands. This is how Slavs took over the Balkans. Slavic tribes Melangoi and Azaretai settled there. In 558 A.D., Bulgars attacked Byzantium. Constantinople was on the brink of a siege. Only a gold ransom saved the city. Emperor Heraclius hired Croats in 610 A.D. The Croats loved Dalmatia so much. They stayed and founded the Croatian kingdom. In 665 A.D., Bulgars fled the Khazars. They settled on the Danube, forming the Bulgarian Khanate, and meanwhile Slavs moved west, bordering Germans. Germans called them Wends. Many small Slavic states popped up. Great Moravia eventually rose to power. The last big group to arrive in Europe? The Magyars. They took over the Black Sea steppes and started raiding their nation. 895 A.D., Prince Svatopluk of Moravia hired Magyars for his army. Instead, the Magyars took Great Moravia and made it their state, Hungary. Europe's borders would shift, but not drastically. This is pretty much how modern Europe's map was shaped. Barbarian kingdoms laid the groundwork for the countries we know. That's the story.